typically a regression is to go back to a safe, familiar place, to take a time out, go back into a cave. In my postmaster's training, I had a wonderful professor with a fantastic Southern gentleman accent who just spouted out, "Don't knock regression." I'm not going to imitate him perfectly, but that stuck in my mind. Regression meant something. It wasn't something to be condemned. It was almost something to be respected. Why are we not progressing right now? Why did we revert back to an old behavior? Mm-hmm. Maybe we touched upon something threatening. Okay, that means you're going to go to a safe place.
So do you view that more as possibly a coping mechanism?
It's definitely a coping mechanism. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, coping mechanisms can be anything from a horrible diet or addictions. I mean, there are different ways it can manifest, right?
Well, the list goes on. There are some coping mechanisms that are relatively harmless, and some, as you said, with addictions, mm-hmm. that are extremely harmful and need to be addressed in different ways.
Right. Because it's so important to have a social support structure in place while we are trying to make changes. So then, often also in my work, I encounter something self-sabotage. How does self-sabotage differ from regression?
Regression is a move back to a safer place. It's often seen as temporary, and almost when someone regresses, there's an invitation to go back in there and say, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Self-sabotage really involves some sort of monumental or behavioral change that may be irreparable. That's going to take some serious repair work to do. That's going to derail the individual rather than have them regress and mm-hmm. isolate or miss a session or whatever. But self-sabotage is often thought of as something more extreme and more long-lasting, and also sometimes involving others.
Mm-hmm. So regarding regression, what are the major triggers that you see in your practice that bring on a regression?
Challenges, usually. Either challenges in the session or challenges in the environment that the individual is trying to build a better place for them in. There may be regression when someone has asked them out for a third date, and there's a fear that this is going to get more involved, and I'm going to be challenged by this. There may be regression in that their boss is challenging them to do something new, so they pull back. They don't feel well that day. They pull back and say, I'm going to be out, just as a means of avoiding something.
Oh, an avoidance. Oh, or it's a strategy in a way.
It's a strategy, not certainly a conscious strategy necessarily. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we go back in the cave and say, why am I sitting here with a pint of Haagen-Dazs when I should be at work?
Mm-hmm. Haagen-Dazs, all right. Summer is coming. Well, spring is coming for sure. Yes. Now, regarding regression and slipping, how do you help your patients with that?
Well, the worst thing to do would be to condemn it, would be to say you're doing it again, unless it's something that's really destructive. Sometimes you have to speak to regression in an almost compassionate way, as if it's back to that child who's sitting on the couch looking down. You know something's wrong. You know they're upset about something. So you want to go to that place. That child on the couch with their eyes down really basically looks like they're alone or is containing something that they can't share with anyone. So you want to be there for them. You want to say, what's happening now? Do you want to tell me? What I noticed the changes in your behavior. Say what's going on in the office and say, this might represent something. Do you want to talk about it?
So what coping skills do you recommend?
Very often, people who regress take a position of isolation. You hear it a lot. One thing to do is to try to make a conscious effort to avert that, even if it's just a phone call to a friend, or take a chance, go out with that group rather than stay home. It kind of brings a person back to the here and now and wakes them up a little bit and say, why did I do that? Why did I stay away for so long? Or why did I not return their phone calls or whatever? Try to step out again, be more active and conscious of the here and now. It's easier to look back at the past and something that went wrong when you're feeling on solid ground.